Scott Frost has named Cam Fancher his QB1. Well, we all expected that, at least here at Locked On UCF.
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every day. Turn us on, turn us up. We'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend, James Duncan, UCF sports commentator extraordinaire, here to talk a little UCF football. On today's show, we're going to talk about Cam Fancher officially being named QB1 for game one. How long will his leash be? Like, how much patience will Scott Frost and McKenzie Milton have Cam Fancher? And then we're going to give our game one predictions. James, let's jump right in here. Scott Frost has made the announcement. Fancher has officially clinched the starting job for UCF's opener versus Jacksonville State, as reported by Matt Zenitz at On3. This seemed to be a lean in the direction of experience. He's played in 32 college games. He's got 26 starts across playing with Marshall and FAU, and he pulled ahead of Jacurri Brown and Tayven Jackson. Tayven Jackson was our early favorite to win the job, but Cam Fancher praised his poise and in the huddle and his ability to command the offense. Now, in the spring, he talked about the players learning this offense as them learning a new language, trying to become fluent in a new language. It seems as if Cam Fancher is speaking Scott Frost better than the other QBs. Even Jaden Williams, the other FAU transfer, the DB, he noted that Fancher is more vocal here in Orlando than he was at FAU. Right. So, maybe being the mix of being a vocal leader and understanding the offense seemed to have given Cam Fancher the edge on the starting job.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's funny you mentioned his overall build at FAU. I think people constantly are going to reference the past when they look at this selection. Right. Yeah. You look at his FAU stats and they're not pretty. And you look at his Marshall stats, and those aren't too pretty either. But then you go and you take a little bit of a deeper dive. You look at the offensive line and the targets he might have had, and there then begins to have some understanding for a lot of people on why that might have been the case. Because a lot of the time, it's not the one person; it's all 11 on the field. And so I think a lot of the reasoning that Cam had those struggles were because of that low-graded PFF offensive line, as well as the lack of consistency with the targets that he had over there. I do also believe that a quarterback can grow a lot between their junior and senior year. And I do believe that is what has happened here with Cam. I was really pulling for Jacurri, and something else that I think that you noted that I think you said perfectly was Cam Fancher won the starting job for the first game. That doesn't mean he's the guy. That doesn't mean that Jacurri's not the guy or Tayven's not the guy. That just means that Cam is starting this game. For the past 4 years, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 5, we have had more than 2 quarterbacks play in every season, or more than one at least. I know that 5 years ago or 4 years ago, we had Dylan Gabriel and Mikey Keene. And then we had John Rice Plumlee, Mikey Keene. And then we had John Rice Plumlee, Thomas Castellanos, and Mikey Keene. And then we had John Rice Plumlee and Timmy McClain. And then this past year, we had KJ, Dylan, EJ, and Jacurri. So there's a very statistically improbable chance that Cam will be playing UCF football or starting as the quarterback by game 12. I'm not, putting that out in the world as something that I hope happens. I would love for him to be the guy and be the guy the whole season. That makes our jobs, and our lives a lot easier as UCF fans. I think that him being the starter for this game is great. I can't wait to see where it goes.
we'll get a little bit more into how long his leash here is in the second segment. But you referenced, though, James, his past stats, which were not sexy. Like a 59% completion percentage, not great. In 2023 at Marshall, though, he did have a 65% completion percentage, which is a lot better. I would like to see that a little bit more.
I believe is his highest in all of his years.
Yeah, so 2,100 yards on 65% is not great either. But system can mean the difference. And Scott Frost has repeatedly praised his wide receiver room this offseason. So maybe there's a chance that Fancher has a chance to play with some weapons that he didn't get a chance to play with. Now, we went over the projected 2 deep at wide receiver, and I'm going to see if I can bring this up here without completely screwing this up. But we've got DJ Black at the X1. And we also have Chris Domercant, and lots of transfers in this room. Marcus, the Florida transfer, will be there at the Y1. We've got Wayden Charles that's jumping in there. He should be able to make a difference as well, too. Dwayne Thomas Jr. at the slot and Jordan Bridgewater at the second slot. If we see some 10 personnel, you could see all 4 of those guys on the field at the same time. In 11 personnel, obviously 3 of them and a tight end. I'll be interested to see how much they open up this offense in game 1 to kind of somewhat test his ability to see the field and, run the system the way they like it. That's what I see in game 1. So, what do you see here when you think about how they're going to use him in game 1? Look, a lot of people have said you can't write off Jacksonville State. They're a very good football team. UCF could lose that game, so you can't look at that as like a kind of testing ground and think you could still walk out of there with a win. But certainly you hope that they figure some things out in that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people look at especially the Power 4 schools look at their first couple of games as like preseason games because they're like, oh yeah, we'll get out there, we'll put our starters out, they'll kick butt, and then we'll put our backups in, and we'll save the guys. I'm not 100% sure that that's going to happen in this game. I think the reason why they picked Cam is because what we want to see from the offense is something balanced. When you have Tayven, you got a guy with a great arm. He doesn't do great with getting out of the pocket and running, but then you have totally the flip opposite side with Jacurri. I think with Cam, you kind of have, whether it's the best of both worlds or the worst of both worlds, you have a mixture of the two, and you have someone with slightly more experience than the other ones. So I think that Cam is going to get out there. He's going to be able to hand the ball off. He's going to be able to run the option. He might take off for a few yards, and he's going to put the ball up. I would very much watch his delivery to Dwayne Thomas. He and Dwayne, I have heard, have worked very well together, as well as his connection with Marcus Burke at wide receiver 1. Dwayne Thomas and Marcus Burke are 2 guys that I think could have a really explosive season. They are both experienced guys. One coming obviously from our folks over there at the Swamp, but Dwayne Thomas coming from an FCS school, I believe. Or was he coming from FCS or Charlotte?
I thought it was Charlotte.
Well, one of the two. Either way, kid's an animal. He's super fast. So I would look for those jet sweep plays. I think those are probably going to DT. And I think a lot of the deep ball plays you could see thrown up to Chris Domercant or to DJ Black or to Marcus Burke, because they are all big targets.
They are definitely Charlotte there. Look, there's gonna be hopefully patience for your QB1. I think the last thing you want is a QB that's looking over his shoulder, James. It's hard to play looking over your shoulder, thinking if your next mistake might be your last mistake. But how long will that leash be? We'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Rougiette. Rougiette, Life is hard. You should be too with Rougiette. You probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal and in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills, it could take hours. Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and control when the moment is right. 36 hours is a long time, but look, man, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Rougiette is the next generation prescription treatment, as I mentioned, and probably the right treatment for you. Head to Rougiette.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off. That's Rougiette.com/lockedoncollege and use promo LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for the full safety information page. How long will his leash be? We kind of touched on it in the first segment. Scott Frost left the door open for the possibility that the QB competition could roll into the first couple games. That tells me that he may have won the job, but nobody really pulled away from the pack. Now, they talked about some things. They talked about his leadership and, some intangible things that helped him win the job, but overall ability may not be that much greater than the other, if at all, right? So in year one, you're looking for a guy who can steady the ship because your future is probably in guys like Kane Archer and Dante Carr and some of these guys that they're recruiting, James. So it could still be a competition. I think it still is a competition, and especially when it comes to taking care of the football. Fancher's touchdown to interception ratio does not fill me with confidence. And like I said, I want to be positive. I think UCF is going to surprise some people this year. I've been very, very adamant about that this offseason. However, if anything will kill your coach's faith in you, it's turning the football over. And hopefully what we see under McKenzie, Milton, and his tutelage is that Fancher takes care of the football better than he did at his previous stops.
Yeah, absolutely. I would hope that ratio gets better because that ratio last year with Jacurri was also not good. I think it was a 1-to-1 ratio as well. So I think when you're looking at the quarterbacks in the room, like you said, I don't think one particularly pulled away significantly more than the other. I do think that the one thing that the other two quarterbacks lacked was consistency. But something else that was discussed, and I think this is important for the leash question, is situational football. A lot of what they were running is situational football towards the end of fall camp. And I think that you have situational quarterbacks. I think that you have quarterbacks that are going to be better in some situations than others. I know, not to bring this up, but Gus often used Jacurri when it was a guaranteed run scenario. When it was a guaranteed read option play, he would use his running quarterback in Jacurri Brown. I wouldn't be surprised to see that again. Especially with Jacurri's increased ability and being able to throw the ball. That is also something that could kind of psych out the defense a little bit. But in terms of the leash for Cam Fancher, like you said, it's not good to have a quarterback looking over his shoulder thinking that somebody else is going to take his job. But there also needs to be pressure to perform, and I think that pressure is definitely on.
Yeah, as far as Jacurri Brown is concerned, a pretty small sample size, James, that we're talking about here. I mean, he only had 67 attempts last year. He completed 35 of them. That's a 52.2% completion percentage. But he threw 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions, so like less than 1-to-1. It was pretty bad.
5, that's bad.
Yeah, it was not good. But the situation was not good last year. From a coaching standpoint, which is why there was a change there at the coaching position. I just have to think that when you take into account the experience of the other two, right? Just all the games played by Fancher gives you more to judge than just the spring and a summer workouts in a fall camp, and saying, hey, let's send him out here first because he's played a lot more football than the other guys. But let's do our best to get these other guys ready so that, if we need them, they're ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably going to be what the case is. I wouldn't be surprised to see Jacurri week 2, maybe a little bit of Tayven, maybe I wouldn't even be surprised if Davi got some snaps week 2. I mean, that's North Carolina A&T. I kind of would love to see a lot of our guys get in there and like freshmen and all that kind of thing, where I think that week 1, you need to go ahead and just make sure you get a win. Let's make sure you get a win. Get Cam out there. He's the most experienced quarterback. Get the guy out there that's been doing the best in practice. And then, you can have your recap practice after week 1. And then week 2, you can, I hate to say it, but like slack off a little bit and have your guys, kind of experiment with what is working. And then you got a really good bye week. Going into game 3.
Yeah. A little extra time to prepare for Coach Belichick and his Tar Heels as they come to town. But look, speaking of games, we're going to make some predictions here on game 1. A lot of people have said, as I mentioned earlier, you can't write off Jacksonville State. I think in the position that UCF is, can't write off anybody in the schedule. Scott Frost has got to right the ship. So we'll make our predictions right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks, guys. The daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. So whether you've got your eye on the big-name quarterback or a breakout running back, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. They've got lots of offers, including a max discount offer with guys like Avery Johnson, at 0.5 passing yards. You got Dak Prescott at a max discount at 0.5 passing yards. Some fun things going on here. There's also a flex play option, and it's a total game changer. So even when one of your picks misses, you'll still double your money. Visit Prize Picks and download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50. This episode of Locked On UCF is also brought to you by our friends at Open Phone. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. I run multiple businesses. I can tell you my phone is always off the hook, and I use Open Phone to make sure that I never miss a call. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on because your time is valuable. That's why you need Open Phone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. See why over 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. They are offering Locked On listeners $20 off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. Open Phone. No missed calls. No missed customers. Game 1 predictions before we get out of here on today's show. UCF fans, I've noticed, are nervous. There's a lot of excitement about Scott Frost returning, but also they're very jaded by what's happened the last couple of years. I said this on a previous show. I think UCF fans died a slow death under Gus Malzahn. It was watching a slow train wreck that you knew was happening, but you could not stop.
Yeah.
And it was only going to finally crash when he left. Now that it's crashed, you got to clean up the trash. You got to pick up the pieces, and you got to get the trains back on the track, man. That starts game 1 on a Thursday night, baby, versus Jacksonville State. Taking a look here, Cam, this is going to be an interesting game, I think. ESPN says that UCF has an 89% chance of winning this game. But you would not tell from looking at UCF social media that they have an almost 90% chance of winning this game by the odds makers. They set the over-under at 52.5. And there's an 18-point spread on this. UCF favored by 18 points. What's your game one prediction, man? Where do you see this one landing?
That's good that it's at 18 because it opened at 16.5. So it made me feel not so great about it, but I'm glad to see that spread has gone up. I don't want to say I don't feel confident in a win. I do feel confident in a win. I don't feel confident in a blowout.
Okay.
I think past couple years, game ones, we've had these nice blowout wins. And I don't deem that as realistic. But I will say Jack State last year, I think went 9-4. I want to say they went undefeated in their conference. They had a great year. I would not be surprised if they have another good year. Granted, a lot of turnover, like not a lot of returning talent. Rich Rod obviously left to go back to West Virginia. They replaced their offensive, or is it offensive coordinator or head coach? I believe their Charles Kelly is their head coach, first year head coach, with their offensive coordinator being Clint Trinket. Trinket. Yeah, he's definitely not the same kind of offensive scheme as Rich Rod. Is not a run-heavy scheme. It is a very pass-heavy, aggressive, airing it out kind of scheme, which actually I think benefits us. The only reason I'm saying that is because I'm very comfortable with the playmakers in our secondary. I've seen a lot of clips. I've heard from a lot of guys in practice that this is a good year for the secondary. I know we hear that every year, and obviously last year we had 2 NFL corners. So I wouldn't be surprised if we had 2 to 3 picks in this first game. I'd love to see 2 to 3 picks in this first game. I'm very confident in a win. I'm not confident in the offense putting up a ton of points.
Yeah, look, it is. It's going to be until further notice. It's going to be hard to believe that they're going to score a ton of points here. I mean, you had arguably the second best back in college football in RJ Harvey last year. And man, let me tell you something. The NFL really validated that by taking him as a high second round pick over from a 4-8 football team. I said it. I thought RJ Harvey had first round talent. And Andrew did not think that. I think he was even a little shocked to see RJ Harvey go in the second round, but I wasn't shocked by that at all. There were some playmakers on this team last year. They were just underutilized, and the team was mismanaged, and a lot of guys were misused. If Scott Frost can get guys in better position than they were last year, I think that could be good for 2 wins. The mess that UCF football was last year, and they won 4 games. When I listen to people say that they think they're going to struggle to win 5 games, I'm like, no, man, I think competent coaching. And on my last episode, I talked about a belief by the players that they can win, which it's certainly he's instilling. They feel very confident in the culture now. I think it's going to be worth for a couple wins. It's very hard to quantify in stats, James, but that belief will drive those guys to perform better on Saturdays. So, look, I'm calling this one 33-20.
33-20.
I'm calling this one 33-20. I think I don't think that UCF covers in this one, but I think they win the game.
I'm gonna say, for the sole purpose of, I think that Jack State is going to have 2 field goals and a touchdown. So I think Jack State will put up 13 points. I think there's going to be one major defensive lapse where they will get a touchdown on us, but I think that they might advance down the field. Their kicker might put up some points. I think Jack State's going to end with 13. I don't consider this a blowout by Power 5 to Group of 5 standards, but I think that I think we put up 38.
38-13 is what you got?
38-13. I don't consider it a blowout. I would love to see us drop a 50 burger on them if possible. But I think we're good for 5 touchdowns and a field goal.
Okay. All right. I like that. Look, at the end of the day, I think the defense will perform. I gave them 20 points because I see something wacky happening in this one where they may score a garbage time touchdown at the end of the game to make it a little bit closer than it is. I'm going to stick with my prediction. So you got them covering. I don't have them covering, but we both have them winning. Guys, hit the comments after the video. Let us know your score. What do you think the score in this one will be? I can't wait to hear from you guys in the comments after the video. James, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, guys, for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. For your next listen, go check out our friends at The Portal Show. Our guy Brian Smith has the latest in portal signings, rumors, all the going-ons in college football right there in one place on The Portal Show. You can find them on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, and you can find us here tomorrow on Locked On UCF.